What's up everyone, it's Dakota and welcome back to another Modern video, and today we're going to be taking a look at Mono Green Tron for Modern. So this deck is a deck that's been around in Modern for a very long time. It just never seems to go away, even though the format itself, especially in recent years, has been getting a lot more powerful. A lot of other decks are kind of catching up to like what Tron was able to do, ahead of its time essentially. And it's still a deck that people play obviously, and it's a deck that still performs decently well and given the circumstances. Again, like with the format getting a lot more powerful, there's a lot more efficiency and things like that, and a lot less margin for error, I should say. And this deck continues to survive and kind of get its fair share of the modern metagame, really. Before we get too deep into the meat and potatoes of the Mono Green Tron deck, of course, if you're not already subscribed to the channel, you should consider doing that. It's the easiest way to support my channel, and it's free, obviously. I'm a small content creator trying to make it in, this sort of niche like game and stuff like that. So I would appreciate any of the support that I can get. Uh, Continuing the support, I have a few links in the description. One of them to the Discord server that I run. I love talking about Magic, things like that. Feel free to go ahead and go over there and join, so we can talk about some of the sweet decks and the ins and outs of Tron. Even though I absolutely despise this deck. I hate this deck. Um, Also, there's a link to my Twitch channel, so hopefully starting streaming very soon. Uh, that's one of the best ways to catch live content. Obviously, is on Twitch, and yeah, I'm hoping to do that soon. Play some Magic, play some other video games and stuff like that. So that interests you, go ahead over there and shoot me a follow. Now, Mono Green Tron. What the heck is Tron? So essentially, Tron refers to Urza's Mine, Urza's Power Plant, Urza's Tower. Now, each of them individually, or any combination of two of them, they all produce one colorless mana. However, if you read them, if you control Urza's Mine, Urza's Tower, and Urza's Power Plant, add 3 colorless mana to your mana pool. Instead, with Urza's Tower and then Power Plant and Mine, say to add 2 instead. So essentially, if you play each one of these, you get to add 7 mana if you have a Mine, a Power Plant, and a Tower into play. Conveniently, Karn Liberated is 7 mana. See where I'm going with this? Your whole deck is comprised of getting these in play, at least one Mine, Power Plant, and Tower, and then having a Haymaker, we'll call them. So having like a Karn Liberated, Ugin, Ulamog the Ceaseless Hunger, Wormcoil Engine, Thragtusk, like these two cards count, but you're really just hoping to slam like an Ulamog, Karn Liberated, so on. So step one is getting all of these lands into play, a mine, a power plant, a tower. Step two does two different things. Step two, you play a Haymaker. If you don't have a Haymaker, step three is to search for one. So while we know that these are a bunch of big baddies, they are more than likely going to end the game once you play one of them. The second one more than certainly ends the game. And if you have to play a third one, your opponent is very persistent, but you are also way more persistent and just wanted it more. So to find these big fatties, these giant creatures that we're going to use to win the game, and planeswalkers, you have cards like Ancient Stirrings. Look at the top 5 cards of your library, you reveal a colorless card from among them, put it in your hand, put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. Ancient Stirrings gets to pull double duty, and the fact that you get to hit like Karn Liberated, Ugin the Spirit Dragon, Ulamog, and Wormcoil Engine on top of any of your lands. And in the worst case scenarios, you get to find like a Warping Whale, you get like an Expedition map, which then can go find one of your Urza lands or one of your 3 utility lands that you have in your deck. It's probably one of the best. It's the best like non-colorless spell in the deck, and it's probably one of your best spells in the deck that don't just immediately end the game, just with the sheer versatility that this card has. You have Veil of Summer to essentially blank like counter magic. You're able to force through one of your spells, or at least force your opponent to have like multiple answers to like a spell. On top of that, just 1 mana Cryptic Command is very good, enough for people to like want it to be banned. However long ago, back when like Match 20 came out or Core Set 20 came out. You have Sylvan Scrying. search your library for a land, put it into your hand. Super simple, easy. Obviously finishes out Tron if you're still looking for a Tron piece, or you're just getting like one of your utility lands and getting to set your opponent back to the Stone Age. Warping Whale, we just mentioned earlier, get off Ancient Stirrings, can take care of creature power, toughness 1 or less. Obviously super huge in a format dominated by Ragavans. Getting to counter like target sorcery spell is kind of an added bonus. On top of that, you just make a 1/1, which could get you up to 8 mana on turn 3 to cast like an Ugin the Spirit Dragon. And a lot of decks, that's just kind of like game over straight from there because you're going to set your opponent back like so many turns. And, even if they're able to deal with the Ugin the Spirit Dragon, you have like a million turns to draw another answer against those decks. Rounding it out, you have 4 sphere, 4 star, 4 map. Map, as we said earlier, ends up searching for a land, obviously a little bit more expensive, like spending invest 3 mana total to get a land, but a lot of the times you're able to go Tron land, expedition map, turn 2, other Tron land, you crack map, get the third one. So map definitely serviceable, gets the job done. You have Ratchet Bomb, which is I think is kind of like a main deck answer to like Rhinos. Definitely, just like you get to play this card. You don't ever have to put a charge counter on it. You just let it sit, and then you blow it up. The only problem being obviously is that you can't like take it up to 1 or 2 and then get everything that costs 2 or less. It has to be exactly however many charge counters on it. So do that for what you will. But Ratchet Bomb is definitely a pretty good answer and a pretty good hedge against the Teamer Rhinos deck. You have 3 Oblivion Stone. Essentially, what this can do is be like a one-sided Wrath. You can put a Fate counter on, Karn Liberated, an Ugin, Wormcoil, so on and so forth, and then, eventually just blow it up when it's advantageous to you. Having some synergy with like Chromatic Star, because if you have a star in play, blow up Oblivion Stone, you still get to draw a card from Star. Not really something super important. It's probably not going to win you the game or anything, but good to know. Just because I think it's something that people just miss, you know. Um, but Oblivion Stone getting to create like a one-sided wrath and really put your opponent under the gun, essentially putting them in a near like unwinning position depending on obviously how the game goes. A lot of the time, like a one-sided wrath where like you're getting to keep like 10 plus power worth of creatures on a planeswalker, I would say is usually in your favor. Um, the utility lands that I briefly mentioned with the Sylvan Scrying and Expedition map, you have a Blast Zone, you have a Boseiju, and you have a Sanctum of Ugin. Sanctum of Ugin is going to let you find, other threats in the deck. Like a Sanctum of Ugin, a lot of time is going to find an Ulamog. Um, Sometimes it can find another Wormcoil Engine, maybe if you don't have another Ulamog, or Wormcoil Engine just kind of gums up the board better, attacks better. But I would say like 99.9% of the time you're getting an Ulamog with this card. You have Boseiju, which can deal with like Pithing Needles, can just kind of overall answer, you know, really anything, and it's pretty decent in the mirror as well because you get to blow up your opponent's Tron land, things like that. So that's kind of cool. Blast Zone, obviously, just getting to be like kind of another Ratchet Bomb that you have to put like mana into. You have to spend 2 mana to be able to put like 1 charge counter on it, 4 to put 2, so on and so forth. Um, but definitely a tutorable way of getting to deal with some annoying permanents. Doesn't deal with Rhino tokens, but it deals with everything else. Especially with like the Fair Breach decks kind of being an issue and really on the rise, and Hammer being a popular deck. This card just kind of deals with that stuff effortlessly. Sideboard, you have Chalices for the Cascade decks, and more than likely probably for the Breach decks because they play like a million 1 mana spells, and Chalice of the Void on one. While not the best for you because obviously you're playing 12 cards that are convert mana cost 1. Getting to do it against that deck, I'd imagine, at least on paper, sounds like a lot of fun and pretty good for you. You have Gutshot. Again, this is a format that Ragavan just kind of warps around it. So having an answer that you can just kind of pay to life, get rid of the monkey, and then continue to like enact your game plan of trying to assemble Tron as fast as possible, has to be pretty good in my book. Oh, you have Nature's Claim, Force of Vigor, just ways to deal with artifacts or enchantments. Force of Vigor, I think, being the better one in most cases because you get to tag two things instead of one. Nature's Claim does have the upside of gaining 4 life, and in certain matchups where like your opponent is just trying to race you, where like there's dealing like chunks of damage to your life total, Nature's Claim can kind of get you out of it by just like blowing up like a star or whatever, getting to draw a card and then gain 4 life and so on and so forth. You have Relic Progenitus as like your main way, and I think really your only way of getting rid of the graveyard in the sideboard. Obviously, getting to exile cards like your Leisure when you don't have anything to do. Also, just getting to be like 2 mana's worth of investment to get rid of the graveyard and draw a card, which is important for this deck to kind of keep spinning its tires to find either one of its ways to uh, look deeper into the deck to get a Haymaker, or actually finding one of its Haymakers. Finally, you have two Thragtusk. Thragtusk is just a big beefy boy, trades in combat, leaves the 3/3 behind, and just makes it very hard for aggro decks to beat through it. All this time, like Thragtusk is kind of only playable in the Tron deck because it just gets to make so much mana so early. So like Thragtusk just kind of gets to be an all-star in this deck. And like I said, just getting to be like a decent amount of creatures in combat. On top of that, getting to leave a 3/3 behind and gaining the life, making it harder for your opponent to race. Thragtusk kind of finds its home here. So that's the mono green Tron deck. Overall, this deck usually is pretty good. Essentially, for like the scenarios that I outlined, where like you assemble Tron on like turn 3, you play a Karn, and if you're on the play, like you just Stone Rain your opponent, and then if they're not able to deal with the Karn or deal any damage to it, you Stone Rain them again, and they're left with one land in play, and your Karn just essentially stop them from playing Magic. And that's a lot of the times that can happen. And the frustrating thing of playing against Mono Green Tron, and kind of the awesome thing about playing the Tron deck, is that your opponent has to answer all of your threats. And while it seems like a like no like really like you know groundbreaking idea there, Sherlock, it is a deck where its haymakers are bigger haymakers than what's being played in the most popular decks. Like, yeah, a 2 mana 8/8 that has the possibility of getting bigger when you exile cards from your graveyard is nothing when all of the other cards in this deck either race in terms of like Wormcoil Engine, possibly even like Thragtusk, maybe could be like a Murktide and like certain life total matchups and things like that. Karn Liberated just answers it. Ugin the Spirit Dragon can answer as well. Not as clean as like a Karn Liberated, but still can. It's just insane that like this deck, years later, really with like almost zero innovation. Obviously, there's some new cards that have been added to the deck. There's like some that play like a Karn, the Great Creator, like package and stuff like that. And I think those decks are pretty interesting in the way that they're built. But just playing straight up, OG Mono Green Tron, plenty good enough. Obviously, this person won a modern preliminary, going undefeated with it. Definitely worth looking into and playing if you just want to absolutely dumpster some fools. So, uh, yeah, if you enjoyed this video, of course, consider subscribing to the channel, leave a like on the video, ring the notification bell so you know when I post more videos like this. Follow the links in the description to the Discord server and to my Twitch channel so you know when I go live on Twitch. And yeah, that's going to do it for me this video. I hope you all enjoyed, and I hope to see you all in the next one.